Amy's heart sank when she discovered that Bambi, someone she had once considered one of her closest allies, was now expecting a child from her ex-boyfriend, the same man who had once been a source of heartache for both of them. Their bond had always been built on trust, loyalty, and shared experiences, but this revelation shattered the foundation they had built together. Celebrity Insider News. For years, Amy had been there for Bambi, offering support through every twist and turn of their romantic journeys. They had confided in each other, laughed together, and even stood by one another during difficult moments. But now, the idea of Bambi being linked to someone who had hurt Amy so deeply felt like a betrayal that cut to the core. The shock wasn't just about the pregnancy, it was about the person involved and the history they shared. Amy had always believed their friendship was something special, a bond that no one could break. Yet, this situation made her question everything. How could Bambi, someone she once considered so close, now be tied to someone from Amy's past in such an intimate way? The pain of feeling abandoned and deceived weighed heavily on her heart, leaving her unsure of how to move forward in a relationship that seemed forever changed. When the news reached Amy, it hit her like a tidal wave. She had always carried the weight of the pain from her past relationship with that man, someone who had been deceitful, manipulative, and left scars that ran deep. After everything she had been through, she thought she had finally moved past it, found her peace. But this news shattered any sense of closure she thought she had. Learning that Bambi, her once close friend, was expecting a child from him left Amy overwhelmed. Her emotions swirling with anger, disbelief, betrayal, and pure disbelief. How could Bambi, someone she had trusted so deeply, now be connected to someone who had caused them both so much heartache? The shock rippled through her, leaving her feeling disoriented and hurt. Years of friendship and shared memories couldn't erase the betrayal she felt in that moment. Confronting Bambi became inevitable. She couldn't just ignore it. Amy knew she had to speak up, to let her feelings out, to make Bambi see how deeply this news had affected her. It wasn't just about the pregnancy, it was about what it represented. The painful reminder of their shared past, the trust that had been shattered, and the undeniable reality that someone they both once loved had caused so much pain. Amy had always believed that a true friend was someone who had been through their share of struggles, someone who had fought hard and learned from their experiences. And yet, here Bambi was, returning to the very person who had caused them both so much pain, someone Amy couldn't understand. It felt like a betrayal, not just to Amy personally, but to everything they had both worked so hard for, every victory, every lesson learned. Her mind raced, unable to reconcile how Bambi could willingly step back into that mess after all they had been through. The shock wasn't just about the pregnancy, it was about the deeper wound, a betrayal of everything Amy had believed their bond stood for. Bambi had spent countless evenings leaning on Amy, pouring out her heartbreak, seeking guidance, and now it all felt like it had been meaningless. In Amy's eyes, this wasn't just about a man, it was about the core principles that had once defined their lives: honesty, self-respect, and the strength to walk away from what was toxic. Bambi's actions seemed to completely contradict everything Amy had fought to uphold. Amy's heart pounded with a mix of betrayal and anger as she approached Bambi, her steps measured but purposeful. The air between them was thick with unspoken emotions, the tension crackling in every breath. Amy had tried to remain composed, but this was the final straw. The betrayal cut deep, and she couldn't hold it back anymore. Her calm facade slowly cracked, revealing the storm raging inside. With her voice trembling, Amy finally broke the silence, demanding, "Why, Bambi? Why would you do this? After everything we've been through, why would you bring another child into this mess?" Her eyes were fiery, searching for answers, but all she saw was hesitation on Bambi's part, uncertainty that only fueled Amy's frustration. The conversation quickly escalated, emotions flaring as both women dug into their truths. For Amy, it wasn't just about the pregnancy, it was about the pattern, the inability to break free from a cycle of heartbreak and regret. To see Bambi step right back into the arms of someone who had caused so much confusion and pain was more than she could bear. It felt like a betrayal, not only to herself, but to everything they had once vowed to learn from, to rise above. Bambi's eyes widened in disbelief at the intensity of Amy's reaction. She had expected some level of disappointment, maybe a quiet conversation about what had happened, but nothing like this. The sheer weight of Amy's anger and hurt cut deeper than she anticipated, and no matter how she tried to explain herself, it felt as though her words only fell on deaf ears. For Bambi, this wasn't a simple decision. It was layered, complicated by emotions she had long wrestled with, and she felt she had made it with careful consideration. Yet, in the face of Amy's outburst, her reasons seemed to fade into the background. It was as if her attempts to explain herself were swallowed whole by the sheer magnitude of Amy's betrayal and disappointment. What stung even more was the realization that Amy, someone she once loved and trusted deeply, was seemingly seeing her as no different from the person who had caused both of their lives so much pain. Bambi felt trapped in a cycle she could no longer escape. And now, more than ever, she realized that Amy's disillusionment with her choices wasn't just about the pregnancy, it was about the years of heartbreak and trust broken, all seemingly repeating once again. Bambi felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her, the tension between wanting to defend herself and acknowledging the hurt she had caused. It was exhausting, trying to explain her situation while also grappling with the deep pain Amy was feeling. The sting of being chastised by someone she once believed truly understood her hurt was unbearable. The more they spoke, the louder their voices grew, and the argument intensified, fueled by emotions neither could fully control. It wasn't just about the pregnancy, it was about witnessing someone they loved falling into a cycle that had already brought so much pain. It was like watching a friend fall into a trap, and Amy's helplessness to stop it cut deeper than anything Bambi had anticipated. Amy's rage wasn't driven by malice, but by fear. Fear for Bambi's future, fear of seeing her repeat past mistakes. It was a reflection of the anxiety Amy carried, the knowledge that not all wounds could be mended, and that sometimes unresolved emotions could fracture even the strongest of bonds. The weight of their shared history was now too heavy to ignore, leaving both women feeling isolated in their pain. Bambi sat in silence, lost in thought, as she realized the depth of the damage caused by her choices. Despite her efforts to explain and justify her actions, she could see that the people around her, especially Amy, would never fully understand. Every attempt to defend herself felt hollow, as though her explanation was falling on deaf ears. And the weight of those unmet expectations bore down on her like an invisible force. She could no longer ignore the reality. The trust, the love, the bond she once shared with Amy had been eroded, and it seemed irreparable. The joy and warmth they once brought each other now felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the immense pain of betrayal. No matter how much she tried to hold on, the bond between them appeared to be unraveling beyond repair. Amy, too, sat in stunned silence, her mind racing through every word spoken in their argument. She felt abandoned, left with nothing but raw emotion and the aching knowledge that her outburst had done irreparable harm. Her anger, which had seemed so righteous in the heat of the moment, now felt hollow, an act of destruction that had burned away what remained of their friendship.